First, a woman has spoken about what she calls the hidden cost of grief. She was coping with the loss of losing her mum. This is writer Lauren Libbert. She said she also then had to go through the pain of losing a very good friend who wasn't there for her because she didn't know how to cope with the grief. And I think people do find it very hard to know what to say. And a friend of mine, Gloria, has recently lost a child. And obviously you have, sadly, have experience with that. And I contact her every day, but I often I feel that my words are no comfort to her. You know, I say them and I think very carefully about what I'm saying, but there's nothing that's going to change that awful situation for her. And I feel like, is it just empty words?
No, because it's really, really important. I mean, we're talking here about the loss of a child. And can I just preface everything by saying that grief is grief and loss is loss. And it's all, you know, relevant to the situation. But when you lose a child, it takes you to the depths of despair that you never thought even possible. So your friend will be in that space as I was. And I'll give you one small example about how important it is. The very day that Karen died in our home in Sevenoaks, there was a husband of a really good friend of mine there on the day. So you've got to remember, it's like as raw as it can be. And as he left, and I knew he loved Karen, he went to me, you know, I can't really say anything, Gloria. And, you know, I'm surprised at my anger. I went, you know what? You're an educated man, and if the bin men can leave me a card that says, I'm so sorry to hear about Karen, surely you can say something. So I can't stress enough how important it is when people say, as in your friend's case, you know, I love your family and I loved your child and I remember your child playing with my children. It means so much. So never be afraid to send a card, even if you just say, I'm so sorry, and, you know, ring me anytime.
I think people panic, though.
They do. They don't know what
I
to
know
do.
when my husband lost his son and, you know, the boy died at 11 and he had a lot of physical disabilities because he'd had hydrocephalus on the brain when he was born. And that child had risen through so many challenges and, you know, he was pretty well known because my husband had made a film about him. When he died, obviously people panic, don't they? They blurt out the most inappropriate things because they're trying to fill the space because you're standing there and my husband was obviously utterly distraught. And this woman said to me, well, I suppose it was for the best.
Terrible.
Wow.
And you just think, I just had to take him out of the room and I just think that people do not really know what to say.
And you know, in that same vein, Janet, somebody said to me not that long ago, do you ever think of Karen? I went, are you crazy? I think of her hundreds of times every day. She would have loved this discussion. She would have loved that dress. I wish she was here to go shopping with. It's hundreds of times every day. But you're right, in that people sometimes don't know
I think people are worried, Colleen, aren't they, of upsetting.
I was going to say...
when someone's grief is so raw, you think, if I say, I'm so sorry... So, you know, when people do that, don't be nice to me or I'll cry.
Yes.
If you're... I think people worry about that, don't they? I don't know what to say, I might upset them again.
I think that's a massive reason why they're frightened of saying it. I think it's a reason why later on down the line they don't ever want to bring that person up in case they're going to upset you again. I think... You know, some people aren't good at expressing their feelings or showing their emotions, or they're shy.
When your sister died? Did it help you?
Yeah, massively. Absolutely. It does help you. What it does is, it touches you. It touches your heart that they care enough to say, you know, even people coming up that didn't know Bernie were coming up and going, I'm so sorry, or used to like watching her on the telly, and it means a lot. But equally, you know, I've also had people who I've known, you know, a long time after it, you know, I've known them a long time in my life, and afterwards I'd see them in the street and they'd cross the road.
What about further
I didn't
down
hate
the line,
them and I wasn't
Gloria?
angry at them.
When something so tragic happens, or like you said, loss is loss, grief is grief, but for you, you know, losing a child, what about a lot further down the line? Do you still appreciate if people say to you,
oh my goodness,
who haven't seen you for a long time, or how are you? And oh, it's Karen's birthday, a call, somebody saying, I know, I'm thinking of you today.
And people talk about, you see, Charlie and Gabriel, I saw Charlie and Gabriel being born. And so they are so special. Your Karen's sons are so special to me. Even when they say, oh my goodness, aren't the boys great? And 6'4" and they look so fantastic and they're great fun. And also, when, like, a girl got in touch with me recently and she said, do you know what Karen did for me? She said, I didn't have much money at the time when I got married, and Karen brought me in her wedding shoes that happened to fit me. She said she was so kind. And I know that Karen was kind, but it's so lovely. So I get very emotional when you talk about things like this, but try not to cry. But, you know, it's so lovely to hear people saying nice things about your husband, your wife, your children, whatever it is.
It is difficult to know what to do because, like you were saying, Gloria, you like it when people come up on anniversaries or, you know, and say, I'm thinking of you today. I don't.
Yeah.
That upsets me
Well,
because I don't want to think of, you know, I get so many messages on July 4th because it's when Bernie passed, you know, and it's kind of like, I don't need to keep
oh, no, it's coming,
yeah, I
that
don't want to always think of that day as her passing. I think of Bernie every day, do you know what I mean? But there's so many messages and eventually by the end of the day, or as lovely as they are, I find myself going...
Swamped
But Colleen, sometimes, if it helps you in any way, you can turn it around to a celebration. I mean, and funny enough, Cliff Richard, who never had any children, said to me at Christmas time, he said to me, how are you going to manage Christmas? And I went, I have no idea, and just burst into tears. And he said, did Karen like Christmas? I said, she loved it. So he said, so why don't you go bigger and better then for Karen and her boys?
Yeah,
and that gave me the key to every celebration. So now we don't go heavy with the boys, and in that much, but we always celebrate. And we try to turn it into a celebration of life. It's a head job.
And do you do the same for her birthday?
Everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely
so
everything.
Instead of shying away from it.
Oh, no, everything. And we mark it, but we don't go heavy, you know. But we celebrate it, and the boys will come down to Hever Castle, where Karen's buried, and I'm sure, I mean, sometimes I don't like going to my parents' grave. It's too emotional, and I'm sure they feel like that too, but they come. And I like that mark of respect going forward as they get older. Yeah. Because I think you have to understand that. And the other thing I'd say is that you can never be the same person again. In your friend's case, you can't be the same person again. But I think that I'm a slightly better person now because I feel more empathy for a lot of situations, and it teaches you, not that you'd like to learn it that way, but it teaches you something else.